And I'm not a founding member of CPR, but I have to tell you, I was absolutely thrilled, honored, excited to be invited to join this movement. And the reasons why are because for many, many years, I've seen everything that we hold dear slipping out of our hands, slipping away from our grasp. I've seen our people continue to struggle more and more and more, even though there's been more and more and more development. And it begs to ask the question, as Dr. Roy Baden so aptly said, who are we developing for? So my reasons for joining CPR is because I see a bigger picture than just the port. I see a need for us to regain our national pride, to, even though we're a minority in our own country, I see the need for us to stand together and to start standing up for the things that we believe in, and to start standing against the things that we can see are getting away from us. Who else is going to do that? Nobody but us. We have got to take this time to join together and stand strong. It is a David and Goliath story, but be a David. Be a David. So, you know, in the old days, our forefathers and mothers, they worked hard to build Cayman. The men went to sea to be able to make a better life for their families here, and to come back and to build Cayman for us. And now, Caymanians are having to run to other countries to be able to survive. I'm not gonna date myself, but I'm getting up there in age, and I've had to consider for myself that I may have to leave Cayman one day because it is so hard to survive here. And I know that there are worse off people than me. It's been very daunting and scary for me to think of those things, but there are people who are older than I am that have had to leave Cayman to go to other countries because they cannot afford medical care in their own homeland. Young families have had to uproot and move to other countries to be able to make a proper life for them and their children. Single mothers have had to pick up with their children and move to other countries. And I'm not talking about one or two. You all, I'm pretty sure nearly everybody in this audience, or those that are listening, know of someone who has had to do that. That is absolutely insane. Caymanians should not just be able to live in their own country, they should be able to thrive in their own country. And this is what we have got to change, and it's got to start now. We have got to make our voices known, that we're not sitting back and taking this anymore. So I urge each one of you to dig deep and find your national pride. Be a Caymanian, be a David, be one that wants to stand, be one that wants to come out and mark your X and not sit home and vote by default or win or lose by default. If you want to make an X by the S, be proud enough to stand up and do that. So I can tell you with the information that I have, I will be voting proudly no. No, no, no. Nobody is going to change my mind on that in the next 4 weeks, I can promise you.
I'm looking around, and is Mrs. Laura Ebanks available, or? Thank you. Yeah, she's doing it for, I don't know. Do you want me to put it there, or do you want to hold it? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to ask you to do something that might be uncomfortable for you, but I'm going to ask you to, as we prepare our hearts for prayer, that you reach out and touch someone to remind us that we all are connected. Let us pray. Creator God, we come to you tonight giving thanks for this beautiful country that you have placed us in. You have founded it upon the seas and given us the awesome responsibility to care for all that you have placed in it. Thank you for trusting us with your creation, O God, and guide us as we do our best to live up to that trust. We pray that each person who speaks here tonight and in the days to come may be led by your Holy Spirit, so that all that is said will be in keeping with your will and your way. We do not believe in coincidence, Lord, for we know you are at work in our country and in our world. So, Lord, it is with the awareness of today being Universal Children's Day that we come asking you to open our ears to what our children and young people have to say. Each day they ask us in their own way to care for this world we have brought them into. Give us ears to hear, eyes to see, and minds to make the right decisions as we prepare for the future which they and their children will live in. Help us to be good examples to them through our words, our actions, and our decisions. We pray for those employed by the media, that they may be fair in their coverage, ensuring that every article and every news item is balanced and truthful. We ask that you lead and guide those leading the campaigning on both sides of this issue. Help each person to speak and act with integrity and respect as they speak in public meetings and post on social media. Be with those in the elections office and others who are working hard to make this referendum a reality, that all may be done with order and with integrity, so that the end result will be one that is accepted by our country without any doubt that it was conducted in a fair and just manner. When all our votes have been cast, we pray that you will grant a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation between opposing sides, as we will still all be citizens of our beloved Cayman Islands, no matter what the result may be. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Miss Laura. We'd like now to invite, let me get this right, Miss Ariana Chin and Miss Anika Connolly to come to the stage and sing our national song. Please welcome and please stand for our national song, Beloved Isles, Cayman.
Reflected everywhere. Oh,
I now have the distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage someone that, if you have never seen, I'm sure you've heard, and that is
So we have the, sorry guys, we're working with the schedules of the Parliament. So we're welcoming now to the stage MLA Chris Saunders, the representative for Baden Town West. He is a certified public accountant and has held senior positions within the banking, telecommunications, and financial services industries. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Chris Saunders.
Good night, everyone. Just forgive us, both Kenneth and myself. I'll apologize in advance. We are in Finance Committee at this moment, and the vote that we're actually looking at, the ministry that we're actually looking at is tourism. And so we're going through every single line item in their spend, line by line. So forgive us for basically speaking and going back. We just came out to honor our commitment to speak here tonight. So that's really what it is. One of the things, when I thought about this project, I have a confession to make. I started with a very neutral position. I recognize that as a representative, my personal views, while it matters ultimately, as a person tasked with representing people, I also have to take into consideration what their possible views could be. And I literally tried my best, hand on heart, to have an open mind and to listen to the case that the government was making to justify this expenditure. And as much as I tried, I could not find one single reason. This started out, some of you may remember, seeing the ads that said, oh, if we build these cruise ports, we can increase average passenger spend from $115 US per person to $230 per person. When we went back and we looked at the Brea report that was commissioned by the Florida Cruise Association, we found that of the 35 destinations that they actually surveyed, not one of 35 had a spend of 230, much less 220, much less 210, much less 200, much less 190, much less 180, much less 170. The last report that they did was one country, 60 something dollars average spend. So this idea of 230 average spend, I couldn't wonder but where that number came from. It's like people just made it up. The other argument they made was, if you build these piers, the average spend per hour on time, the average time spent on shore will increase from 4 hours to 8 hours. I went back, I looked at the report. Not one destination had 8 hours. None had 7, none had 6. But coincidentally, only 5 destinations had average spend per hour than onshore. Only 5 was about 5 hours. And do you know where the Cayman Islands ranked in that list? Number 3. Number 3. But what really did it for me was there's an article that appeared in the Jamaica Gleaner under the headline that the Jamaica tourism numbers were down 27% on average, above in the 20s. And they had basically sold to the Jamaican government the idea that the Western itinerary was down as a result of Cayman being down. And the month that they looked at for their analysis, I went and I looked at Cayman numbers for the same month. Now, granted that both Jamaica and Cayman is in the Western itinerary, I was a bit curious. When I went and I looked at the numbers for June, which was the number that they had in the article, Cayman actually had 38,000 more passengers than Jamaica. But yet, Jamaica has 3 ports, 5 piers. They sold Jamaica a bill of goods. Several weeks ago, I was in Jamaica for some business, one-day trip, in and out. Well, out the next day. And just by coincidence, I ran into a senior member of the Jamaican government at the time that was party to that decision on the Falmouth Cruise Port. And what he said to me, pretty much, I can't say it because kids are in the crowd, but the bottom line is they got a 6 for a 9. They were basically taken advantage of. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, what we are here for, the cruise lines and ourselves are in competition. They are not our partners. Don't let anyone fool you. They're fighting. They're fighting for the same share of wallet that we are fighting for. Their objective is to get as much money spent on their ships, just as though we are trying to get as much money spent on land. And when you sit back and you look at the analysis of the entire cruise industry within the Caribbean, which is over $3 billion that is made on cruise, when you look at where those ships generate from, which is Florida, what the Caribbean makes for $3 billion in 1 year, 35 destinations, that's what Florida makes from their tourism products in 2 weeks. What we do in 52 weeks for the entire Caribbean on cruise, Florida does in 2 weeks. This is what it is about. And let me tell you something. The one thing that really and truly scares me the most is 7 Mile Beach from an environmental standpoint. Now, I gotta be honest with you. If the government goes ahead and pushes this port through, maybe there's a possibility that all the wonderful things that they say is going to happen will happen. But the question is, what if they are wrong? The truth is, if they are wrong and it does damage 7 Mile Beach, there's nothing that we can do to fix it. We're already having struggles already. You already see the Marriott, you already see different places. You already see the sand erosion even from some northwesters that we have. But the question is, equally so, if we are right at least or we are wrong, at least there's still no damage to the environment. But the bottom line is this is too big a risk. And for many people, I don't know if you ever heard about this place in Jamaica called Portmore. There was a time before Portmore was developed that as you could walk from probably here to maybe about down by where the National Museum is, water to your waist. Now, if you move from here to right there, no one will even know you are standing here. That's what dredging did. That's what dredging does. It has consequences that no one can sit down and fully recognize what the impact will be. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look at the numbers, and it's kind of ironic because looking at tourism, we're looking at the National Tourism Plan. And the scariest number inside that was, they have a section, I forgot which page it was, but just roughly from memory, between 1996 and 2018, cruise went from 800,000 passengers to 1.73 million. But the amount of ships that actually increased from that period in 1996 with 800,000 to 1.73 million was actually 47 ships. They had 500 and something ships that visited in 1996, and there was still 500 and something ships that visited in 2018. Literally, almost 1 million more passengers, but the ships just got bigger. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to sit down and think long term. We need to ask ourselves, as my good colleague Roy Barton was always asked, who are we developing for? When you look at the numbers in terms of stayover tourism and what it does to the local economy compared to cruise, it's night and day. In 2017, there's a new phenomenon that started within the tourism industry that has become an issue now called over-tourism. We have now seen European countries saying to the cruise ship, enough. We have seen North American cities saying to the cruise ship industry, enough. And the truth of the fact is, when enough of these other ports start saying enough, where do you think those ships are going to come? They're going to come right here. We have not yet sat down and looked at something as simple as Stingray City. What is the carrying capacity in this country? How many people can we take physically on shore at a particular day? These are studies, these are analysis, these are things that we need to do. Just tonight, just to give you an example, we look at the whole issue in terms of going through the tourism budget, and one of the things that really struck me is that there's been a phenomenon now to push the whole Airbnb issue, and that's fine. But guess what happened? In 2010, we had roughly 11,000 something rental properties. Population 55,000. 8 years later, we now have 13,000 something rental properties. Population 65,000. And then when the government sat down and started taking or approving properties to become Airbnb, they were actually taking rental properties out of the market. And what did that do to the existing local stocks for rental? It actually went down. So supply went down, but yet at the same time, you push work permits up, demand went up. What do you think happened to rental prices? 30 to 50% increase in such a short period of time. These are the type of actions that we can't sit down and plan a country on. We need to sit down, look at proper analysis, proper impact, and see what it is that we need to do. Their argument is that people need to be coming off the cruise ships much quicker. Well, guess what? 2 weeks ago, flights were held up because of rain. If you are worried about people's experience coming to this country, their first initial experience, something as simple as jetways, we don't have. That is the bread and butter of our tourism industry. Yet planes are held up, planes are delayed because passengers either can't come off the plane, can't get on the plane, and you know what happens when you have to start restructuring flights and all that kind of stuff, the costs go through the roof. So if you're really worried about people's initial feeling when they get here, start with the airport. You know, if you want to start someplace else, finish the schools. Show me you can at least finish one project on land in budget before you want to go build something in the sea. But, ladies and gentlemen, listening to Shirley and the young lady earlier, saying that we should be like David. Do you know who also was from the house of David? A man by the name of Jesus. And it just so happens that one day his disciples brought a blind man to him. And Jesus asked the man, how do you see people? He said, I see them as trees. Now Jesus knew this man wasn't seeing right. So he took some spit, he rubbed it in his eyes, and he asked him, how do you see people now? To which the man replied, I see them as they are. And I'm saying to you, look at the players in the cruise industry, see them for who they are. They do not mean us any good. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Okay, so moving quickly along, as we meet tonight in our capital city, we are pleased to welcome Georgetown Central MLA, Mr. Kenneth Bryan. I did have some more to say. Prior to his political career, he was well known for his time as a TV reporter, anchor, and political journalist with Cayman 27, and as the political assistant to the premier from 2013 to 2015. Please welcome Mr. Kenneth Bryan.
Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. All right. We got to get some energy in here. I want you to forgive me because I'm going to be rather quick. As you heard my colleagues say, we got some work to do. So I wrote down a few words that I think that summarizes the true sense of what I'm experiencing and seeing that's happening in our country. And I hope that they summarize some of your beliefs as well. And I hope that when I'm finished, you come to the same conclusion that I come to. And then we can make a change. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When I was elected in May of 2017, I was overwhelmed with pride, patriotism, and honor. For any citizen to be elected to be a member of the House of Democracy and become a voice on behalf of the people is such a great privilege. Sadly, I stand here tonight before you with a sense of disappointment, embarrassment, and shame to share the space with many of the members of the government and the Legislative Assembly today. The actions of this government and the handling of this project has been nothing less than totalitarianism and an effort to suppress the people's views. From actions of not allowing hundreds of Caymanians to take the opportunity to participate in these historical moments, to the actions of calling our Caymanian people Muppets and rascals. The symbolism of those actions should be a major concern for us all, as it presents the probabilities that these kinds of behaviors can and will continue again and again in other equally serious decisions of the future. This should be alarming for each and every one of us. Ladies and gentlemen, the referendum is bigger than you or I. It's bigger than the port. It's bigger than any one politician. This referendum and your vote will change the narrative on how legislators and those who represent us behave when making decisions on your behalf. You have the opportunity to positively change the approach of governments today and in the future, and how they handle the serious responsibility of representing your voice. Let this referendum be an example of the power of the people. Use this opportunity to remind them where the true power is in this country. Show your representatives that from December 19th and moving forward, that they can no longer ignore, disregard, belittle your voice. On December 19th, you can send a clear message that from that day forward, they will learn to respect, listen, and adhere to your voice. To the younger generation, I would like to take this opportunity to ask and plead with you, please, please, get registered to vote. Many of the issues that you care about, they will never address if you do not increase your percentage of the voting bloc. Take this for an example. There's 21,145 registered voters in Cayman. Only 13% of them are between the ages of 18 and 29. Just 13%, ladies and gentlemen. I've had the honor to be your voice for the past 2.5 years, and I want you to trust me on this issue. They will never listen to you until you accept your power that you're entitled to. It is yours. Take it and be proud of it. Get registered to vote. For the residents of Georgetown particularly, this matter should be closer to you than all others. Regardless of how you feel about the cruise element of the port project, I think we as Georgetowners should be particularly concerned that the government will turn our town, as we know and love, into the new industrial park. The government is planning to grow our country to 100,000 people, but yet they want to take our cargo into a transshipment point, and they say they have no intentions of moving it. I challenge you, every Georgetowner, to Google the word transshipment and take a look at the images that you see and ask yourself if that's what you want for Georgetown. I will tell you all here tonight that I will be voting no. in the referendum. I have done all that I can to investigate the facts, and I am not convinced that this is the best way forward for us. I will not tell you what to do with your vote. If you've come here, and if you've already come to your own conclusions, it's not my job to tell you what to do. I know that you're intelligent enough to come to your own conclusions. But if you've come here tonight and you're not sure and you need guidance, I ask you to trust my judgment. I ask you to do the same that I will do and vote no on December 19th. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, sorry, I'm a bit short. Next, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Roy Baden. He is a former member of the Legislative Assembly of the Cayman Islands, having served as the Minister of Education, Human Resources, and Culture from 2000 to 2005. He is President Emeritus of the University College of the Cayman Islands, following his 9-year tenure as President of the university. He is author of 6 books, including his most recent, From the Guardhouse to the Glasshouse, One Man's Journey Through the Maze of Caymanian Politics. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Roy Baden.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall tell you as Henry VIII told each of his 6 wives, I shall not keep you long. Having said that, however, it would be remiss of me if I wouldn't warn you that what the government is proposing is a mortgage of our long-term future for the short-term promise of a false success. For what they are proposing will serve no other entity but the cruise ship companies, and it will ruin Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman, and we will leave nothing to posterity, and our progeny will curse us if we leave such a legacy for them. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Say no today, no tomorrow, and no on December 19th. Loud and clear. This port proposal does not warrant us degrading our environment, destroying our infrastructure just to help the Florida cruise ship industry. If you want to see the deleterious effects and the two-facedness of the persons in that industry, I recommend that you watch a documentary called Jamaica for Sale. It's a documentary made by 2 young ladies, Esther Figueroa and Diana McCauley. This documentary is a precursor to what will happen in the Cayman Islands. Small entrepreneurs were run roughshod over, the environment was destroyed, and the cruise ship companies did not live up to their promised obligations. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be a part of the No campaign in this matter of the port. I implore you, get involved. It is our future, and if we let this opportunity pass, it will never be regained. When officialdom behaves idiotically, our collective voice should be heard. And so together we should have a resounding no on December the 19th. And do not be intimidated or discouraged by the government propaganda and their machine and their attempts to suppress our democratic rights. I urge you to galvanize the support. Your neighbor, your friends, your family, bring everyone out on December the 19th. If we miss this opportunity, it will never be regained. And I want to say this, as an educator and as one who always took pride in preparing the young to be the next generation. I am proud of the efforts of these young people behind the CPR. And I'm going to end with this prediction. We are going to win. We are going to win. We are going to win because, ladies and gentlemen, all of you together are one in this effort. God bless you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get back onto the schedule as it was. It's not that I couldn't read, they just had a change of plan. So, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage now a beautiful lady that everybody knows, especially on Star 92.7 FM. She's a DJ, a mother, a radio host. She's an entrepreneur, real estate agent. She's a God-fearing woman that loves her country and loves her people. Please come to the stage, Ruthanna Young.
I'm like Melanie, I'm kind of short. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so if anybody listens to my show, you would know that that does not work. Good evening, everybody. All right, now we're ready to talk. So for those of you who are maybe a little bit less familiar with me, I am well known outside of the radio for dragging people down to the elections office to get them registered to vote and chronicling it on social media. Because I have always felt very strongly about the fact that we must get registered to vote and we must vote at every opportunity. So it's on that basis tonight that CPR Cayman has asked me here on this podium to talk to you. And, you know, in writing for tonight, which I had to do because when I sit on the radio from 5 to 6 in the evening, I just get to ramble on and I don't have an hour. And I had to think about how could I deliver this to you? How could I talk to the people, whether you're sitting here in front of me, those who are watching via live stream, through, you know, TV, radio, all of the mediums that will tune in here tonight. And a few things came to mind. And it started for me with this. In 1930, Miss Layla Rothshire penned some words to paper. And two lovely ladies sang some of them tonight. And so it starts with, O land of soft, fresh breezes, of verdant trees so fair, with thy Creator's glory reflected everywhere. O sea of palest emeralds, merging to the darkest blue, where'er my thoughts fly Godward, I'll always think of you. 63 years later, in 1933, those words became officially what we now know as our national song, Beloved Isle Cayman. These words speak to these unique and beautiful islands that we are all blessed to call home. The words of Beloved Isle Cayman for me are the beginning of the conversation I wish to start here tonight. They asked me to speak to the importance of participating in the first ever people's initiated referendum here in the Cayman Islands. Yes, And we should be proud of ourselves. I was speaking to someone from another British overseas territory, and they said, do you realize how big of a deal that is, that you guys have even gotten it to this point? And so for everybody who put their signatures to paper, who showed up and harassed their families and their friends and their co-workers, to CPR Cayman, who tirelessly, and all the volunteers who work tirelessly to get signatures, we should be incredibly proud of ourselves that we have gotten to this point. And I have said it on radio, and I say it here before I go any further. Everyone who has been involved in this movement should be incredibly proud, because I have watched people who have come from every walk of life in this country, every creed, every color, every background, every nationality have come together on the basis that, number one, they love Cayman, and number two, they believe that this decision needs to be taken to a national vote. And so I say all of that and continue to say, I believe we as citizens, we as Caymanians, have three key responsibilities around this discussion of participating and voting, getting registered to vote. Number one, get registered to vote as early as is possible. And I didn't anticipate doing this tonight, but I see Mr. Alai McLaughlin sitting in the audience. If you don't know him, he's amazing. But part of his birthday present when he was 18 was to go get registered to vote. And that is my wish for every Caymanian. And if you are past 18 and if you have not yet gotten registered to vote, get registered to vote, right? Use the Alais as an example. Talk to your children about it so that on their 18th birthday, their first request of you is, can you please take me down to the elections office? Number two, vote whenever we get the opportunity, whether it be a general election or in the first ever people's initiated referendum in the Cayman Islands. And number three, and what may seem less important to some people, but we want to make sure we give them no excuse to not count our vote. Number three, it's also our responsibility to make sure you keep your information current. I drag people down to the elections office for that too. I did that yesterday. And I was not asked, as I said, to speak to you about whether to vote yes or whether to vote no. I was simply asked to come here tonight to speak to you about why vote. The answer to that question for me starts with the mere fact that we are Caymanians. Because of course, if you are registered to vote, you are Caymanian. And that this referendum asks us to participate in a decision being made about Cayman. Cayman that is our home. As I've told many people, these islands are the only place that nobody can run me from. This is the one place that nobody can deny me access or entry to. So we Caymanians would only be wise to participate at every opportunity we can in the decision making of our country. So when you ask me, why vote? Why participate? Why make your voice be heard? My response is simple. Because I am Caymanian and this is my home. And if we don't participate, if we don't vote, we are saying that we are willing to accept whatever decisions whomever else makes on our behalf. And look at where that has gotten some of us. Silence and cowardice has landed many of us as second and even third-class citizens in our own home. Now, while so much has changed, even in my almost 35 years of life, it'll be officially 35 years on the 29th of this month, right? I've celebrated all month long. It's easy to forget. It can be easy to forget with all the distractions, with all that's going on, the stop from whence we have come. It is easy to forget whose backs this country has been built on. It can be easy to forget who should be the guardians at the gate, safeguarding all that is Cayman and all that belongs to Caymanians. Sometimes we must be reminded what being Caymanian actually means. We must reconnect to the deepest part of who we are as people in order to remember that nobody can expect to safeguard the interest of this place, this treasure that we call the Cayman Islands, but us. So in writing my thoughts tonight, to be honest, I had to spend some time reconnecting to myself and reminding myself about what I believe is the core of who I am as Caymanians. And I say Caymanian because I'm not just talking about being a West Bayer from Crab Hole Road in West Bay, right? Because above all things, right? You always hear me say I'm a West Bayer, but at the end of the day, I am Caymanian first, right? And so for me, as I thought about that, this is what I've come up with. I am TD, Bobo, and Ereckley. I am silver thatch palms, ironwood, cocoa plums, and sea grapes. I am stew conch, stew turtle, and if you know me, I am certainly Cayman style beef. I am cassava cake, biscuit cake, custard top, cornbread, and for the brackers tuned in tonight, I am also Cayman brack bread, okay? I am conch shells, sand dollars, sea biscuits, sea fans, and starfish. I am Caymanite and black coral. I am dories, and certainly I am catboats. I am grass peas, marl roads, and nor'westers, and tonight reminds me I am also cold fronts. I am swanky and sweet, sweet, sweet kitchen band music. I am chickens running wild in the middle of this financial district called Georgetown. I am blue iguanas, agoutis, and Cayman parrots. I am wattle, daub, and thatch roofs. I am Eden Rock, Devil's Grotto, and Bloody Bay. I am Ebanks, I am Anglin, I am Power, Baden, McLaughlin, Connolly with one N and two, Rankin with no E and the E, Bush, Smith, Scott, Rivers, Tibbetts, Macfield, Seymour, Thompson, Watler, McLean, Hydes, and Miller. I am the proud granddaughter of a legend, a Caymanian legend. I am probably the proudest, and sorry if any of my cousins are here tonight, the proudest granddaughter of the late, the great Cap Marvin Ebanks. I am a 345, I am Caymankind, and I am one of the guardians at the gatehouse responsible for directing, protecting, and preserving through participation the future prosperity of these islands. My home, our home, the Cayman Islands. Because why? Because of, above all things, after being a child of God, I am then Caymanian. I am Caymanian. I was Caymanian before I was a mother. I was Caymanian before I was a sister. I was a child of God, and then I was Caymanian. And because we are Caymanian, we must vote. There are several occasions in history across the world where the people of a nation realize that decisions are actually made by the power of the people, not the people in power. And on December 19th, 2019, the people of the Cayman Islands should join those pages in history and allow this decision about the greatest capital project in the history of these islands. The greatest capital project, even if it's on budget still, it's still the greatest capital project that we've ever had, to be made by the votes of the people. On December 19th, go out and vote your conscience. You can vote yes, you can vote no, but go out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruthanna. That was incredible. So we've had speakers so far. Yeah, I think Ruthanna deserves another round of applause. Yeah, I think she deserves another round of applause. Hang on one second. So we've had speakers. So Chris Saunders spoke to the concerns about the financial. Dr. Roy Baden spoke about the socioeconomic concerns. And now I would like to welcome, sorry, this schedule is changing on me, so. Now I would like to welcome, for the concerns of the historic and cultural concerns that we have. We are very honored this evening to welcome Mrs. Angela Martens. As a former director of the Department of Tourism and a longtime senior civil servant, Mrs. Martens is able to share a unique perspective on the historical and cultural concerns regarding this cruise port. Please welcome to the stage Mrs. Angela Martens.
Good evening. I don't know that we really have recognized Ruth Anna properly. And I say that because I am deeply honored that I could sit here and listen to Ruth Anna, a voice of tomorrow, speak about her identity as a Caymanian. Michelle offered that I'm going to speak about historical and cultural things, and I will disappoint you on that. I'm not into history tonight. But I'm going to come with a perspective that's absolutely mine, not owned by anyone else except me. So I want to say good evening to everyone, and I want to thank you, Michelle, and CPR Cayman for the opportunity to contribute to this evening. I may disappoint some of you tonight, but I'm not here to tell you how to vote on the 19th of December. I cherish each person's right to their own voice far too much for that. So all I can offer you tonight is the perspective that is guiding my vote. When I walk into the polls with my 3 children right behind me, I will be voting as a steward of 2 things: our Caymanian environment and our people, nothing else. I will cast that vote on behalf of my 10-year-old goddaughter and children like her who trust us, the adults, the Caymanian adults of this community, to do the right thing. I'll be voting with one probing question in my mind. What future is this port project leading Cayman into? Not next year, but 20, 50 decades from now. What will its impact be? What legacy statement will you make when you cast an X? When my eldest daughter, Annika, went away to school, one of her classmates' parents told her this: "Our whole family loves visiting Cayman. It's such a different vacation spot compared to the other Caribbean islands. Your island and your people are truly one of a kind." I remember Annika telling me this at the time and just feeling really proud. I didn't do it. But if we vote to make ourselves like Miami or some other cruise destination, we will be forgoing the very thing the high-end visitor speaks about, the one-of-a-kind quality that has made Cayman stand out on the world stage. And I'm here tonight without fear or favor to tell you I will not be voting for that. I will vote my conscience on the 19th of December with 2 realities firm in front of me. And as I penned these words this afternoon, a lot of memories were rushing through me. A former director of social services and the first Caymanian director of tourism. Both of these positions offered me a unique viewpoint and responsibility to understand how Cayman can prosper through tourism without letting our approach to tourism destroy us. I remember the hundreds of man-hours that staff and I, utilizing millions of public dollars to promote our world-famous shore diving experience here in Georgetown. One of very few in the world, the only one in our region. I will be voting to protect what's left. I'll be voting as the little Georgetown girl who grew up on North Church Street, adjacent to the area under the question for the port development. Every time I go to Casanova, and just know this, that the ground floor of Casanova was my grandmother's shop. I spent a lot of time in that shop because every Caymanian then had a father that went to sea. And in order for Georgetown to really make it, they had to truss it from Mrs.'s shop. So I wrote in the exercise book whatever your mother sent on the little note for whatever it was that you needed till the next money came from the government savings bank. So you would take 10 pounds in and still owe grandma money. And she died with exercise books full of money that was trust but never paid. And she gave me one directive: never ask anyone, and I didn't. So I remember that building And that building has memories for my brother and I every time we go near it. But I was there on Monday. I was there for lunch. And I was sitting on the veranda out back, and I looked out to sea. And the question before me on Monday, as the visitors who were with me were enjoying this amazing place, I was thinking of tonight, and I was thinking, what future are we heading into? That question, my friends, get answers next month, on Thursday, the 19th of December. But I want to say to every single Caymanian who votes, it is Christmas time. We give gifts at Christmas. We are giving a national gift on the 19th of December. Understand this clearly. I don't tell you how to vote, but I tell you the gift you give on the 19th of December will keep on giving for generations and generations to come. I am voting with the belief that the Caymanian people should automatically be heard on all matters relating to the future of our islands. We should not have to petition to be able to be heard. But I am voting with deep humility and pride when I look into the faces of Michelle and the other young people who have led the charge. They are articulate, they are focused, they are professionals. And it's with deep pride, Michelle, that I stand here tonight. I have 3 children. And I stand here tonight looking at their peers and what they have done. And my question is, what will my generation do? So I'm saying to Cayman, when children in high school speak out, we pay no attention to their voices. When the children speak out through Plastic-Free Cayman, we pay no attention to their voices. But it is to them that we have no choice, hand over Cayman. What will our legacy be? But there are 3 things I want to close with. I'm voting on December 19th in memory of my dear friend and classmate, Bo Miller, who back in 2015 wrote these words to me after I filmed a short video about the proposed port project. Bo congratulated me on the video, and he said this: Cayman was built on 2 assets, Angela, its people and its natural environment. We are fast losing many of our people, both old and young. We cannot afford to destroy our environment as well. If we do, what will we tell the children? He went on to say, my question to our decision makers: who gave us the moral authority to consume Cayman in 1 generation? And this evening, as I sat at my computer, there's my grandmother, Sissy, who reverberates between my ears. I remembered something Grandma said to me, sitting on the step as she held my hand. I was going off to university in 2 more days. And Grandma said, and for those of you who don't know, I was called Anne as a little girl. Anne, go to the big school and try to learn all you can. I'm quoting her words because they are searing in my brain. Try so come home. And she ended it with this: this is all you have. I don't forget. So tonight, I stand for Miss Sissy, my grandmother, and I will vote in memory of her. She stands on the wall over there, because this is all I have. Cayman is indeed all we have. So I'm asking each of you to join me in your district energetically as you walk with pride into that voting booth. Just remember this: you have a right to the decision you make when you place the X. I only ask that you are able to live with that decision when you see future generations, and I don't even know how to say this, worse off than they are now, which is unconscionable as it is. But importantly too, that your legacy is you didn't care about Cayman at all. Vote for the future of our environment and our people, because at the end of the day, Miss Leela talked about O land of soft, fresh breezes, that's all we have. Thank you.
So just a couple of things I've been asked to announce. We have 2 tables on either side. There's some wonderful volunteers, thank you, volunteers, who have some information. They have some Vote No stickers. We have bumper stickers. We also have some of the forms for the elections office if you, for whatever reason, might be off island and you need to apply for a postal ballot, or if you, for whatever reason, are not physically able to show up on the day and you require the mobile voting, they have the Form B and the Form C. So like I said, if you have a chance, get some food. Also, if you haven't had any food, and then please go and visit them and get some bumper stickers. Let everyone know how you're going to be voting on the 19th of December. So as I said, we're going through all the different concerns that we've had. So we've had financial, we've had the social. And now I am pleased to welcome to the stage Dr. Carrie Manfrino, who is the Director, President, and the Director of Research Conservation of the Central Caribbean Marine Institute. And I'm going to say this because I don't think this gets said enough. CCMI is under the patronage of His Royal Highness the Earl of Sussex. I don't think that the royal family puts their name to anything that they don't believe in. So I just need to say that. That's personal. She holds a PhD in marine geology and geophysics. She established CCMI in 1998 and developed the Little Cayman Research Center with a vision to advance the frontiers of coral science, conservation, and education. So please welcome her. She's already next to me, so please welcome Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to talk today. I get to talk about science, which I know everybody's looking forward to. I want to start by saying that I'd like to start by continuing where Roy left off, and that is to really talk about what are we promised by this group for this project. And what we're really promised is the destruction of our ecosystem in the harbor. That's what we're guaranteed. We have slides. Maybe. I'll get started. In 1998, the Central Caribbean Marine Institute was started actually at Rum Point. I was teaching a group of students from my university in the United States, and we were sitting on the beach. We had come in from being on the reef, and just about everything on the reef had died. And I sat there and I thought, well, what are we going to do? We're scientists and we're studying something that's dead. And I decided that probably the smartest thing to do is to develop a research center and an education center where we could really bring people in who knew a lot more than we did to help us to understand what was going on and to maybe solve some of the problems. And so we started the Central Caribbean Marine Institute here at Rum Point. We still don't have slides. All right, next slide. Oops, back one. So our work is really to take a vision, which is a reality that we need to transform our knowledge as scientists into something that's practical and useful. Understanding that and knowing that is really important because that's why we're here today and that's why we're speaking up. With all of the information that you've been provided by the Verdant Island Group and the scientist that's the expert on the island, who isn't me, by the way, what we're learning is a lot of misinformation. So we thought we'd put together a presentation to show you where that misinformation is and to give you some of the facts about our reefs and about our future. It's our responsibility as scientists to collect data and to distill the data into something meaningful. We will be providing everything that we're talking about tonight on our website and on our Facebook so that you all can use the data and use the facts as you go forward with your campaign. In 1999, we did our first survey of the reefs in the Cayman Islands. We had an expedition across all 3 islands. We surveyed Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, and Grand Cayman, and last year was our 20th year of doing that. And we have a report, it's on our website, of the 20-year results from the reefs in the Cayman Islands. Unfortunately, what we've seen is a decline in our coral cover, very similar to what we're seeing across all of the Caribbean. We've seen a loss of about 30% of the coral in Grand Cayman. We know that the long-term trend for coral reefs is not looking good, but we also know that if we totally excavate the reefs in the harbor, that's even worse. We decided to survey the reefs here in Grand Cayman about a month ago. We came and we did surveys all along 7 Mile Beach because I've been called to question about my question about the sand on the beach, and you probably know that we were pretty upfront about questioning whether this project would cause erosion on 7 Mile Beach. And so we did surveys along the beach, along 5 sites along 7 Mile Beach. Do we have a slide for that, Beth, to show where we did? Okay, well, we surveyed Eden Rock, we surveyed the harbor, we went all the way up 7 Mile Beach, and we were shocked to find that there was 58% coral cover in Georgetown Harbor. That's higher than anywhere, even on Little Cayman, in the Cayman Islands. And this is the area that's going to be excavated. It's shocking, actually, because when you go over to Eden Rock, just down the way, where the Carnival wreck was, we have only 7.7% coral cover. A pretty big contrast over a very short distance. It goes to show you what the far-end good aspect of our reefs could be and how bad they could be with the cruise industry wrecking them. This is a pretty detailed slide, but this slide says it all to me, and hopefully I can explain it clearly to you. We've been hearing that the Polaris group has been incredibly successful at restoring the reef up at the Tortuche wreck site. And in fact, what they did was they restored about 1/5 of the corals that were wrecked at that site. They took 1,000 corals, they replanted them to the substrate, and they said, we're successful. We have 89% survival of these corals. In fact, if you look at the total number of corals that were destroyed, there were over 6,000 corals that were toppled. So they've restored 1/5. So they're reporting on 25% of what they restored or what they wrecked. In fact, if you look at the total reduction in coral cover, we see a reduction of 72%. I would say that's a complete failure of that project. In fact, the scope of the relocation and reattachment was less than 1% of the corals that would be impacted by the port. So what we want to say is that this port project is much bigger than what we saw happen up at that site, and they couldn't even succeed at that. We have big doubts on whether there'll be any success with either the restoration work or the relocation work. Next slide. So the Baird Environmental Impact Assessment, which I had to read front and back many times, outlined many risks, and I hope that you all have had a chance to see how clear the report is with what the risks are. They're massive, but one of the most important risks that I think we need to consider is the turbidity and the constant disruption of the sediment that will be going on as a result of these big ships so close to the shoreline. That sedimentation in the water column is shade to our reefs, and sediment on top of the reefs, it can also kill them. We are concerned about the long-term existence of all of the reefs along 7 Mile Beach because of this project. If those reefs shut down, it shuts down a very important part of the sand budget, the total sand budget to 7 Mile Beach. When the scientists did their models and are promoting that 7 Mile Beach is disconnected from the harbor, they didn't consider the in situ sediment that's being produced by the reef. They just were talking about all the sand coming around the island from north-south. They never considered what was already there in terms of the carbonate factory, the sand factory. So there are some big flaws in the models that have been created for the project. We've written a pretty extensive statement, a 6-page statement today that is going to be available as well, that outlines all of the problems with the project in terms of what they're promising. The engineers are promising that they're going to move between 150 and 180,000 corals in the harbor. Well, in fact, they're also saying that they're going to make 10 corals for every single coral that they remove. They're saying 150 to 180,000 corals. What that means is that they're going to produce 1.5 million corals for us. Isn't that wonderful? Exactly. It's very unrealistic. In fact, we've done some research. We've worked with some of the scientists in Florida in the lab that Dr. Vaughn was working in, and we learned that it took them 2 years to produce only 25,000 microfragments on the reef there. And at that rate, it would take 20 years for them to produce 250,000 microfragments, and about 120 years to produce 1.5 million microfragments. And they have a small army of volunteers there. We support and engage in seeking innovative solutions that pioneer the protection and restoration of coral reefs. We have some great projects in Little Cayman, and we have a new collaboration here with Eco Divers where we're going to try and grow some corals, but it's all science. This is really the basis of what we do. We need to understand how we can do it effectively. We feel that the community should clearly understand that this has never been accomplished. No one has ever succeeded in growing this many corals, and I don't think that we should be the test ground for that. So I think it's clear that we have enormous risks, and they have none. What we're promised is to lose our ecosystem and maybe even our beaches. We are working with innovative restoration techniques. We're in a race against time to support ailing coral reefs. But they shouldn't be promoted as a like-for-like mitigation technique, because microfragmenting has never been proven at this scale. In conclusion, I just want to say that the relocation and restoration strategy that's being promoted is no guarantee. For anyone voting on the 19th of December, please know that if you vote yes, you're condemning the health of this ecosystem. I just want to end by saying that we have great risk to our ecosystem because of what's being promoted as the opportunity to restore and to replenish what we have. It's just never been done, and it's just not possible. At this point in time, maybe in the future we'll be able to restore reefs. We hope so. Thank you.
So our next guest I kind of stumbled upon. She wrote me on Facebook and said, I'd like to meet you and discuss this port issue. I had a conversation with her yesterday, and I was deeply inspired and by the wealth of knowledge that she has and the things that I have never even considered regarding this issue. So our next guest is a director of the Conservation Governance and an assistant professor of natural resource conservation at Auburn University within the School of Forestry and Wildlife Sciences. Her focus is on biodiversity conservation and the human dimensions of natural resources. Her PhD is in natural resources, environmental planning and policy from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. Her research won the Best Doctoral Dissertation Award, as well as several other prestigious awards, such as the U.S. Fulbright Award, MIT Presidential Fellowship, and the USAID Innovation Grant, and an MIT Center for International Studies grant. Please welcome Dr. Kelly Dunning.
Hello, my name is Kelly Dunning. Thank you for the really generous introduction. It's really an honor to be here. I'd really like to thank CPR. It's really hard to come after folks like Carrie, like Ruthanna, like Angela. You guys have said everything that I would like to say here only 1,000 times better than I'm ever capable of saying it. So it feels very humbling to come after such amazing speakers, and I really appreciate your time tonight. The overarching theme that I want to talk to you guys about tonight is something that you understand quite well because you've all worked together to organize this referendum here. It's about democracy, right? Despite all the letters after my name, after our names here tonight, we're on a first name basis here, right? And what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is how to democratize science. I can't tell you how many different times people have come up to me here in the Caymans after learning about what my research is in, which is on the services that coral reefs give to humans and human civilizations, and said, Kelly, does transplanting coral reefs work? Well, I'm not in the business of telling people how to think. I'm in the business of telling you how to find out that evidence for yourself. And I challenge you right now to pull out your cell phone, to go to googlescholar.com and to Google coral reef transplanting. The amount of studies that you find that show successful, long-run, peer-reviewed evidence of transplanting working at a scale that Carrie outlined before me, at a cost that we can afford in a place like the Caymans, they do not exist. There are a handful of studies that show piecemeal examples of this occurring, and I'm telling you right now that you don't need letters after your name to find this out. We live in an unprecedented age of technology, which makes it so advantageous for us here, people who are pursuing democracy through this referendum, to be able to democratize science. You don't need a PhD in order to look this up for yourself. This is at your fingertips. You can do it right now while I'm talking. If you have any questions about how this stuff works, you don't need to have a university ID card. In fact, if you want access to paywall journal articles, you can write to me, khd@auburn.edu, and I will download a peer-reviewed article and send it your way. And that's how you democratize science, and I bet the people from the Central Cayman Marine Institute will do the same for you. Real scientists aren't in the profit-making business. I'm not going to tell you how to think with a price tag attached to the advice that I'm giving to you, but I will tell you how to look up evidence for one way or the other. The other point that I wanted to circle back to is my background is in the human dimensions of natural resources. So how do communities thrive through meaningful stewardship of our natural resources? Coral reefs are the tropical rainforests of the sea. They do all of these things for human society that it's really hard to catalog them all because there's so many different things that they do for us. We wouldn't be able to have all these high-rise buildings lining the shore if they weren't protecting us from erosion. Every year during hurricane season, I'm from South Florida, so I'm very familiar with the power of hurricanes. We wouldn't be able to live in communities like South Florida or like Georgetown if it wasn't for the ability of the reefs to sort of buffer us from these big disturbances. Reefs, beyond just doing stuff for us, look down at your t-shirt. Do you have a coral reef on your t-shirt? Every t-shirt I own almost has a coral reef on it. It shows that it occupies a big place in our minds and in our hearts. This is the type of value, it's the type of part of our identity. It's why Guy Harvey has a giant store on the waterfront that sells t-shirts with coral reefs on it. This type of meaning can't be quantified. You can't measure how many dollars of avoided damages that hotels benefit from every year from the reef buffering us from waves. This is stuff that's deep down in our minds, in our hearts. It's stuff that we can't auction off to the highest bidder. And when scientists come here and they tell you to take their word for it and that they've somehow managed a certain type of technology that the rest of us in this field, and don't get me wrong, I'm only in my first year as an assistant professor. I don't claim to know everything, but I'll give you some names of people who do know a hell of a lot more than I do. Dr. Terry Hughes, who has studied the Great Barrier Reef for decades. Joshua Sinner, who has also studied reefs of the Indo-Pacific for decades. Google their names, Google their peer-reviewed papers. If you can't access their paper, write anybody here who was speaking to you today and we'll send you copies of it. But they all hold these same views too. These are the best coral reef scientists in the world that view this type of technology that's been promised to the government here as being just ridden with uncertainty. And, you know, back to this idea of democracy. Are we willing to risk the loss of some of the world's most well-known shore dives? Growing up in South Florida as a little kid, I knew about the shore dives here. The reputation gets around. People know whenever people have immense riches under their water and they travel from all over the world to come here. Given all of the uncertainty around the technology that's been promised to you, and as a side note to that, I urge you to follow the money. How much money are people asking for in order to deliver these life-changing technologies that somehow don't really have a lot of peer-reviewed science to support them? Real scientists put their work up for free on the internet, and when you ask for it, we'll give it to you. We don't charge tens of millions of dollars to do stuff. The thing that I want to end here with today is decisions and policy should be made with the best available science. It shouldn't be made by these confusing, hidden, secret technologies that only some people have access to, that are hidden behind titles and letters after names, and people who pretend to know better than you and know better than these communities here who have the biggest stake in these ecosystems. I would leave you here with this today. Engage the scientists from your communities who are working on your behalf. Engage civil society who's brought you here today. Demand an updated environmental impact assessment with the best peer-reviewed science available that you can look at and make your transparent decision based on the best available science. Do not make decisions based on what multinational corporations who don't care about you and don't care about your children want you to do with your natural resources. Thank you.
Isn't she incredible? Like I said, I just met her yesterday. So I have the pleasure of introducing the next speaker, and I don't actually know how to do it because I didn't know him, I think maybe 17, 18 months ago. But in the last 18 months, he's become one of my closest friends at the moment. Every night before crosstalk, I get a message, Michelle, you can come on crosstalk with me tomorrow. And without fail, I always try to go. I don't know where he has all of his time, all of his energy. I don't think he sleeps. But I am so truly grateful to be able to welcome to the stage. And I really don't think you guys need this introduction because everyone knows him. But I'm so grateful to be able to welcome to the stage Mr. Mario Rankin.
Good night, everyone. And it's hard for me to follow up all of those great speakers. And I can tell you, Miss Angela, that was heartwarming. And Ruth Ann, if she's still here, that was seriously empowering for me. And I haven't had an opportunity to listen to Ruth Ann speak on a public platform, but I can tell you she really inspired me. And having said that, I'm constantly asked on a frequent basis, what's in it for me? Why am I doing what I do? And I can honestly tell you, it's not for me. I had 45 years at this. I grew up on Walker's Road. I enjoyed South Sound Key, Sunset House, Eden Rock, Smith back of there, and in the harbor right here. We used to ride bicycles off of those piers every single Sunday. We used to ride, I remember when you could ride horses in that harbor. And now it's gated. You can't even go out there without Port Authority permission. So that in itself is really disheartening because the reason why I'm in this is because I have 3 children. And it's for them to even have a resemblance of what my growing up past was. So that, for the record, is why I am in this. I have nothing to gain other than to secure the future for the Cayman Islands, especially the environment, the marine environment that our lovely scientists spoke so passionately about. So what I will share with you all tonight is something that I just recently found out. And I've been saying it, on radio for the last 19 months. And what's really disappointing is that if our government was operating in the best interest of the people of the Cayman Islands, they would have engaged in a total different negotiation with the cruise lines.
In 2011, the government, along with Royal Caribbean, entered into an agreement to tender the Allure of the Sea, which is an Oasis-sized ship owned by Royal Caribbean. And they went as far as to buy a mobile security center in order to accommodate. And the reason why this is essential to the conversation tonight, and it's important for us all to know, that had the government had re-engaged that conversation, we would be experiencing the same growth in the tourism sector, in the cruise industry, that they are promising us now that we would have if we built a cruise berthing facility. This document highlights, and I shared it with the media, by the way, and everybody will have an opportunity to see this document, and I shared the correlating emails that supports that document. So it's a real document. So Royal Caribbean agreed to tender their Oasis-sized ships. Yet, in 2009, they inked a deal with the Jamaican government to build a port in Falmouth. This deal in 2009 was inked on the promises that they're giving us today. The same promises that they have put to the table is almost like cut and paste. Yet they knew in 2009 that the Cayman Islands did not have a cruise berthing facility, and that if we didn't have a cruise berthing facility, it would drastically affect the Western itinerary for cruise. And what happened is when they finally inked the deal, 3 years later, the Oasis-sized ships started experiencing decline in numbers. They weren't able to sell that tour because the Cayman Islands wasn't on the itinerary. So they pulled the Oasis-sized ship, sent it to the Eastern Caribbean. So those ships that the pro-port lobbyists claim that passes our shore to go to the Eastern Caribbean every day is not because they can't call to our port. It's because they're not allowed to come to our port. It's because Royal Caribbean chose to send them to the Eastern Caribbean simply because they couldn't fill the ship because the Cayman Islands was not on the itinerary. Now, what's ironic about that is, and what's interesting about that, is that it's hard to believe now that we hear their lobbyists, we hear the government supports their theory about the cruise berthing facility and how much we need it. Not realizing that, I'm not a betting man, but I would place a bet that I don't think the premier of this island even is aware of this document, because he could never speak so passionately about the economic growth in the sector, knowing that that document exists. This document clearly demonstrates that we could have been enjoying the same economic growth in that sector with them tendering their ships. We bought a $200,000 mobile facility that sits at CDC in Industrial Park right now, being used for office space for the Port Authority building. We paid for that building, we paid for the gangways, and we paid for the ramps to accommodate the wish list of Royal Caribbean. I will be issuing all of the necessary documents so everyone can read it itself, and hopefully the media will put it in print. The irony of all of this is that all of this could have been avoided very easily if Royal Caribbean or any of the cruise lines were operating in the best interest of the Cayman Islands or its people, because they would have tendered those ships like they had originally agreed, and they would be bringing their ships here. The Western itinerary wouldn't be suffering. Falmouth, Jamaica wouldn't be suffering because we don't have a cruise pier. In June of this year, there was an article released by the Jamaica Tourism Department that clearly stated that the reason why they are seeing decline in their numbers is because the Cayman Islands don't have a cruise berthing facility to accommodate the security risk that the Oasis-sized ship brings. Not that we don't have a berthing facility. It was only the security element of it that was what emphasized in that article. So what's happening here is that we are definitely being given a 6 for a 9, because when we look at this project in its entirety, and you look at all of the things that has transpired since the engagement of this particular government in 2013, when the project had first came about, we've seen so many anomalies that just don't add up. And when we ask the question for the information so that we can have a better understanding as to what it is you're trying to do and why we are going down this road, there is nothing wrong with our cruise tourism. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I think that at this particular point, skunk, Steve. I lost my train of thought. I was saying earlier that there's nothing wrong with our cruise tourism product. I would venture to say that at this particular point, since we've seen a lot of the natural disasters in our sister islands in the Eastern Caribbean, we've seen an influx in numbers, and it has caused a lot of issues here. In the entire presentation that Mr. Michael Bailey put out in his roadshow in the last couple of weeks, not once did they talk about the social economic impacts of this island. They want to bring ships here 365 days a year. Can you imagine what that must feel like? There's not going to be a rest period. Where do we find time? Where does the country and the infrastructure find time to recuperate? How do we recuperate? Do anyone here wants to see cruise passengers here 365 days a year? Every single day? I don't think so. And this is the thought process that should have taken place. If Royal Caribbean and our government were operating in the best interest of the Cayman Islands, like Miss Angela said, we shouldn't have had to petition to have a seat at the table, to have this discussion. There's a lot of stakeholders right in the audience tonight that could have easily contributed to those conversations. And for us to move forward on this project, going into 2019, 2020, with all of the writing on the wall. If you look in the Eastern Caribbean, you look in the Central Caribbean, and you look in the Western Caribbean, we don't compete with no itinerary. There's the Western itinerary, and there's the Eastern itinerary. There's no competition. We are now very aware of how important the Cayman Islands is on that Western itinerary, because we're not on the itinerary for Oasis-sized ship, their numbers declined. The cruise line, 60% of their revenue comes from the Caribbean basin, their entire revenue. You're talking about $37 billion a year. 60% of that comes from the Caribbean. It's time that the Caribbean islands start to act responsibly and collectively so that we understand what our worth is and we ensure that we get value for money. They want us to build a cruise pier for their ships. The Cayman Islands don't own cruise ships. So we're not building a cruise berthing facility for nobody other than them. We don't own a cruise ship. When the next time you see the government build a building for Flow or CUC or any private company and tell them here's an extra building because we think that you're growing, you let me know about it. So why are we building a $200 million dock for a cruise company that already enjoying billions of dollars every quarter? And by the way, you know that the cruise industry is the fastest growing business in the world? The fastest growing business in the world. There's no slowing down. They got 12 ships on order, 12 Oasis-sized ships on order between 2022 through 2028. 12. You know how many of them are scheduled to come to the Caribbean? 2. 2 ships. And the reason why they're doing 2 is because they're gonna rotate the Allure of the Sea out. And the rest of the ships going to the Asian market. They're going to China and other places. So are we to believe that we're building a cruise pier to accommodate 12 Oasis-sized ships, 4, 6, or just 1? These are the questions that we should have been asking. These are the things that should have been negotiated at the table. So it's hard for me to understand what it is that our government was thinking when they sat down. And I heard someone said in one of their video recordings that the government got the best deal in the world. Let me explain something, and let me just share this last bit of information. Our port is the largest financial commitment that the cruise lines has ever partaken. Google it like our new friend said. You can find that information right now on your phone. They have never partaken in any project of this magnitude ever before. And you want me to tell you why? You know why they're so willing to partake in this? It's because the Cayman Islands is the premier destination in the Caribbean. We are the 3 stilts that hold up the cruise industry. And if you don't believe me, just look at the Western itinerary. Look at the Western Caribbean itinerary. In the Western itinerary, none of them are seeing Oasis-sized ships. What's to stop Royal or Carnival from pulling their ships at any time, at any point? This 25-year arrangement that they want to make with us, why are we giving away our port that we currently own? We don't owe anybody for that port. $30 million worth of revenue for 25 years. And we've given it to the people who controls and manipulate the passenger. The business model is designed on the passenger rate of arrival. Now, can you imagine? The person that is in control of this model is also the people who are in control of how many people come to pay back this debt. So at any point in that arrangement that they feel like they want to extend that, what would be so hard in them diverting a ship so that those numbers don't meet that annual quota? And then we haven't taken weather into consideration. We haven't taken any of those things into consideration. So there must be some arrangement within that contract that allows them to extend that period from 25 years. And that 25 years can turn into 40 years or 10 or 30 years. I'm 45 years old, and 25 years, I might never see when we get that dock back. A lot of people in this audience might never see when we get that dock back. So in our lives, we never got it back. We never owned it. We have to be very careful how we're going to mass cruise, because it affects the quality of our overall product. Our cruise industry plays a significant role in its own respect. But if we were to take this trek and go down this road that could potentially hinder the overall product, then we would have essentially been putting at risk the very thing that created this product. We have two pillars of our economy: finance, financial industries, and tourism. Who is willing to risk the only one that we own? We own the tourism industry. That's our industry. This island is ours. It's time that we start treating it with respect. It's time that we start treating it for what it's worth. I'll end with just saying that this referendum is significant in many ways, and I'll tell you why. This is the first time in the history of this island. This is the first time in the history of the Commonwealth. This is the first time anywhere that the United Kingdom rule that there's a people-initiated referendum. And we're not here voting for politicians. We're not voting for politicians, ladies and gentlemen. We're voting for the Cayman Islands. All that it has done for us, it is time that we do for our islands what it has done for us. Generation now has a collective responsibility for generation next. And it's our job and our responsibility when we stare down the faces of our grandchildren to say that that beach that you're on, we fought for. And that's what we're here for. So I'll end by saying I encourage everyone who is a registered voter to come out and vote on the 19th of December. You know, the only way we're gonna be able to make this precedent have its rightful place in the history books is when we come out with the largest turnout in voter history in the Cayman Islands. So I encourage everybody to come out and vote. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. I just want to say, because there's been this really incredible slideshow that's been going on, demonstrating some of the beautiful reefs, some of the shipwrecks, and all the different activities that happen in Georgetown Harbor, and this has all been provided by Courtney Platt. So I think he deserves a round of applause. Not only for the photos, but for his voice that he's added to this argument as well. Just a couple more like housekeeping things. I keep getting told a zillion things I'm supposed to say. Again, we've got the two tables at the end. I also got asked to let you guys know that the elections office has moved. It's no longer on Smith Road. It's now at the old HSBC building on near where KFC is. And I'm going to ask Linda to come to the stage because we're at the point in the evening where we're opening this up. And this is another thing, because the government meetings are written Q&A. This is live Q&A. So if anybody has a question, please put your hand up. I'm not afraid. We're happy to answer your questions live, face-to-face. So yeah, if anybody has a question. If not, then we can move on quickly to the next phase. Comments as well too, if you guys want to speak now. Nothing? Anybody? Come on, I don't have to beg for this, guys. Come on.
First off, as a CPR volunteer, I want to thank the core group of everyone that's come out tonight, because it's been absolutely amazing watching everyone in my community rally around a cause, and it's been inspiring, and I haven't felt like this in a very long time. And so for every single person who's still sitting in these chairs, you're setting an example for me, you're setting an example for your kids, and I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And anyone who feels nervous or scared for showing up, thank you for being brave, because these are our islands and we deserve to have our voices. The second thing I'd like to say is that I feel like every time I listen to someone that you guys organize to speak or to share information, I feel like I keep learning more and more and more, and I know how I'm going to vote on December 19th. I'm voting no. And I won't tell anybody how to vote. I just want you to just show up and vote. We need everyone. But I want to say that even though I know how I'm going to vote, it really disturbs me emotionally to my core that the people that we elected to sit there and call people like me rascals, it hurts my feelings. I know that sounds silly, because I sit there and think that they are supposed to be held to a higher standard. They are supposed to be representing our country. And it's really embarrassing when I take vacation time to listen to a debate in the Legislative Assembly, and I watch them name calling, and I watch them not even really debating. They're just mudslinging back and forth. And I really think that as frustrated as I feel in those moments, it's moments like this tonight that I understand the value of why voting on December 19th is so important. We have got to get this country on a track that we want it to be on. And it's not up to them to tell us what to think or how to think. I am embarrassed that they are spending our money not to make sidewalks so that our children can walk safely through Georgetown or tourists can walk safely through Georgetown. There's so many different ways that they could be spending money on tourism that would positively affect short-term stayover tourism as well as longer-term stayover, and it would benefit us. Wouldn't you want to be able to walk on a sidewalk with your family and not get hit by a road or in the road by a car? You know, it's these type of things that really scare me, and I sit there and know what we deserve. We deserve to be heard, we deserve to be listened to, and I really respect the fact that you're not requiring us to pre-write our questions as if you need time to prepare to think about what it is you want to say and what rhetoric you want us to believe. I really appreciate that all of the money that it's taken to put these seats on these floors, that all of the money that it's taken when you guys get they needed a discount for sure, that when they get slices of pizza or sandwiches, people took the time to make that food or donate their money. Every single one of us, every time I turned around tonight, somebody needed some Scotch tape or some bug spray or something, and we all came together for all these tiny little things. Government did not give you or I or CPR or any rascal, or what was the other word that Muppet. They didn't give any of us Muppets here a single dollar to hear what we had to say. So when you go in on December 19th, you think about every single thing that our elected representatives have done to us, against us, and have not listened. And just remember that we are powerful, and you guys inspire me, and I needed this so much tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who has a question, a comment? Oh, we do have some comments. Yay! I don't really want to speak for our guest speakers, but they might be willing to come up again if you have a question specifically to somebody who spoke earlier as well.
Okay, good evening. It's not so much questions, it's just I've been listening very closely every time there's been a representative from the Pro Port on the talk shows, reading in the newspapers, been to a few meetings, and I have heard until it makes me so frustrated I end up walking out of the meetings, things that are lies, untruths, things that aren't possible. And I've been making a list, and I can't leave here tonight without just saying a few of the things. I'm very frustrated, and yes, I am a civil servant, and I have no fear. On Thursday, I listened on Rooster show. The guy from RCCL said that they can't have their passengers tendering, their passengers in these conditions tendering. And that really struck a nerve with me because from 1975, both Mr. Adrian and Mr. Radley created this awesome cruise ship tourism module that we have because they began the tendering service. And they have not stopped. If the weather is too bad, the cruise ships make the decision to not tender. It's not them. They have never called it off. So the two of them, fine Caymanians, have created this. And to hear Royal Caribbean sit down and berate them and say that it's not up to par and it's so substandard and tear what they built and did with not one penny from me or you or anyone else here. They put their own money in it. They never approached government to subsidize it. So that is wrong. That's one thing that I had to get off my chest because it really bothered me. And he said, the Royal Caribbean guy said that it is impossible to tender because they can't have their people. Oh yeah, I get a letter tomorrow morning. But anyway, he said that they have done drills and they can get everyone off of their ships in an emergency evacuation in 20 minutes. But it takes a tender over 2 hours. Now, you cannot compare the emergency evacuation of a ship where it's an emergency. You don't bring nothing. You don't get your book, your suitcase, you grab your child and go. You cannot compare that to discharging a ship in normal conditions, going through security protocols, customs, immigration, and getting your suitcases and your bags. Standing and talking to your friend, you don't do that in an emergency situation. So that comparison, he should have been run out of the room by that, just from saying that. The next thing he said was that it is common knowledge, and I don't know if you access their financials like my good friend who's a really computer savvy guy did. Here, their high season is in the summer. And if we build this port effectively, our high season will not only extend from the winter, but all through the summer. Now, Royal Caribbean's high season in the summer. That is true if you take in the entire entity of what Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines is. 5 or 6 separate companies. But those figures include Alaska, Asia, Mediterranean, the entire European market, who in the winter is warm enough so people, in the summer, it's warm enough that people can travel. But in Cayman, in the Caribbean, it is not the summer because winter, it's cold up north, everyone comes here to enjoy the heat. So that's no comparison. It's not a lie, it's just a mistruth. It's words put in the wrong context, and we are expected to sit back, swallow it up, like it's the best chocolate candy in the world. Another thing that they said was they have adjusted their dredging style from hydraulic to mechanical. So if you're using a hydraulic machine to break apart the bottom and coral heads and sand and create a hole, but you're making that same hole, breaking off the same coral heads, digging the same hole with an excavator, it's no different. Silt is still being created. But the positive thing about this module, this plan from them, is that it will be constantly monitored by silt monitors, constantly around the clock. And the DOE can come in and shut them down. But if the DOE has no say in this now, how will they be given the power to shut them down once they start? The DOE, poor Miss Gina, has nothing to say about this. They run around like a poor little scalded dog. But we're supposed to believe that all of a sudden, the flick of a switch, DOB has their power again, their input means something, their values, what they stand for, means something all of a sudden. No, that's not going to happen. If you dig a hole today and create silt, when you do it tomorrow, the same thing is going to happen. So they can't stop it and start it back and it's going to be fine. That doesn't happen. They had this coral expert, and hats off to Miss CMMCI, whatever. Yeah. Good job, ma'am. Thank you. But they had an expert up there who I think we need to start praying to him in the night when we go to bed, because he is better than God. It takes God to make a coral reef 75. He showed us a little thing about 2 inches across. And he said in 2 years that was over 2 or 3 feet big. He said normally it would take 75 years. But he did it in 2, so he's better than God. He can create coral and make coral grow. I don't know what type of, what do you call them things? Steroids? I don't know what he's doing, but he's obviously good. Another lie that we are being told, GMO. Another good point to this port project that he was saying was that crew spending. Each ship has over 2,000 crew. And they're going to be coming ashore and eating in our restaurants and buying our stuff. That's not going to happen. Them poor brutes are starved, got it all day long. They don't make no money. They got keep every tip they can. They come here to go to Western Union. They send it home. They save it when they get to Miami. They send it home. I worked for the Customs Department from 1987. I interacted on a daily basis, many days at that same port. I was up and down on the tenders. After 2004, or 2002, whenever this 9/11 was, the security protocol increased, so we spent a lot more time there. Not one single day, and I can say this without fear of contradiction, not one single time have I heard any passenger complaining about the tender ride. The kids enjoyed it because they could see fish on their way in. It was a preview to what they would be doing. So it's all lies. It's all lies to push their agenda of money in their pockets, furthering something for someone else. We are giving away our country, and we will have nothing left. That's all.
Thank you very much.
I know that. Yeah, I think that deserves more applause. I know that's really hard to follow, but does anybody else have a comment or a question? If not, I'm going to... Oh, we have 2 in the back? 2 in the back? We'll just make the 2 in the back.
Good night, Cayman Islands. Good night, Cayman Islands. Thank you. I think we're going to have to stand behind this young man by tomorrow morning, but the photographer said he was not going to post the pictures, so we're going to hold him to his word. But I think he needs to be commended for his bravery as a civil servant as well. And
Yeah, thank you.
And I think he just opened a whole brand new can of worms about freedom of speech and the regulations of a civil servant. But we have a lot of rights in this, and I'm glad to see that we have come together to stand for them. I have a question to ask, and then after that, possibly dependent on the answer, a comment to make. And I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this question.
I'm going to try.
But has there ever been any indication of a solid contingency plan in the event that cruise tourism plummets or gradually declines as they are dependent on the repayment for the port from the cruise tourism? And if that decreases, then how is the port repaid for? Kenya just lost its port ownership to the Chinese because they couldn't pay for it. Is that where we're headed to?
That is an extremely good question, and that is one of the main reasons why this initiative had started to begin with, for lack of information. We didn't have any details on the contractual arrangement that the government was negotiating with the cruise line, so therefore concerns like that was one of the sticking points for us. where in that contractual agreement that there are any guarantees that our port won't be subjected to seizure by any outstanding loans. So for that question, we need to look Mr. McLaughlin and the Minister of Tourism squarely in the eyes and ask that question, because we obviously have been fighting for that information for the last 18 months, and to this day we haven't been able to receive any correspondence from the government in relation to what we've asked.
Thank you very much for your answer. So then I'll make my comment then. Thank you very much, CPR, for all of your efforts to bring this historical movement where I can stand here at Celebration Park. And I'm going to implore the people of the Cayman Islands to come out. I heard everybody else saying tonight, I'm not telling you how to vote, but I'm telling you as a Caymanian how you need to vote. They don't have the answers that we need. And I'm only here because I am seeking information. And I have been down this walk with government before looking for informed consent and the information that I needed to make a decision when they were releasing genetically modified organisms on us. The Minister of Health eventually brought that program to a halt because we were being used as guinea pigs. I can't help but correlate the two events and say that once again we are being used as guinea pigs. This time financially at the risk of our future generations. Now, I want to thank you also very much for making this a democratic event tonight with the open floor forum by which we could ask questions and pass our comments. And I just want the public to know that I brought that question just now to CPR because I was unable to ask the question last night at the West Bay Town Hall. This is what democracy looks like. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm going to be very brief. Okay. I just want us to think about the psychology being used on us by our elected officials. Now, how can we trust people who speak to us in the manner that they do? How do we trust people who have made poor decisions on our behalf? Closure of roads, development of barcas, selling airspace, building iconic towers. I call it the Dubai of the Caribbean. That's what Alden and his group are doing. They're creating the Dubai of the Caribbean at our expense. We're gonna have to pack our bags, run England. I ran already, but I came back home to fight. You know, every year they give us a little work on the summer and in the Christmas time. So this year now, the con artists have given them, the poor people of this country, which was about 600 turnout the other day, they gave them 3 weeks. Now I signed up to hear what they carrying out with, and I'm going out there. So they called me, told me I get 1 week of work, $350 CI, 1 week of work. And guess when payday is? The 18th of December, so that we can go and get drunk and don't come to the polls the next day. So what we're gonna have to do is sign up by the liquor shops with a booth, our t-shirts on. I get a bus, Mr. Webster, please help us bus our people, drunk or sober, and carry them to the voting booths. That's all I gotta say.
Let's make this miracle happen on the 19th of December.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Shirley, I think we're kind of trying to cut it close now, if you don't mind. Unless you're going to be brief.
Yeah, I'll be brief, I promise. I just had a few more things on my list, and I just wanted to touch on it quick. One very important aspect is, and Mr. Mario always brings it up, is our capacity. I have a charter business, primarily fishing, but stingray cities sometimes, and it is a mess as it is now. I cannot fathom I don't even want to think what could happen out there with an additional several more 100,000 people a year, or just on a daily basis. Something will happen, and then our product will be gone. But one quick thing that she mentioned it just now about the repayment, what will happen with the repayment. I asked the question at the meeting in last Thursday night, but I had to write it down, and I got so fed up I left before they read it. They might have even answered it. But the question was, does the head tax come from just Royal Caribbean and Carnival, or the total cruise ships? And I'm pretty sure it comes from the total of all passengers that arrive. And I asked that question because the Royal Caribbean guy once again said that someone asked what is the guarantee that they will remain here and not pull out like they did in Falmouth and New Orleans. And his reply was, oh, well, that's how we will get our money, so we have to bring our passengers back. But that is another untruth, because if the money comes from all the rest of the cruise ships and cruise companies, whether they're here or not, they will still get their share. All will happen is that it'll be extended from 25 years to 35 or 40 or 50, and our generation and probably the next one will never have ownership of that port. So, no, I'm not done yet, but anyway.
Well,
all right, I cut him
Darren,
off.
I will just share this with you. The business model is based on the 2.5 million passengers. So that would include all other cruise lines. That's not just Royal and Carnival. Because when you look at the increase of 40% from 1.8 to 2.5 to 2.3 to 2.5 and upward, that's the entire industry. That's not just them. So yeah, all of the head tax will be coming from across the board. So that's one of the main concerns that we all have over here at CPR.
One more question for Mario, real quick, by Ms. Kathy Church.
Last question.
Short and sweet.
Does anybody know if there is a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding, which any normal government would have signed by now?
Well, I don't think any of the MOUs for this particular project, because it has been so many, is still in existence. So I think they went straight to the procurement process and to the preferred bidder. That's my understanding. So I don't think there's an MOU that is related to this particular process.
So
I'm sure that there was one in the past.
So we well and truly know absolutely nothing about what we're going to vote
Zero.
for. So we have to vote no. And while you guys, the CPR, are very instrumental in getting this started, it's every single person in the audience who can go get 3 or 4 more people. That's what's going to make it work.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're not quite done yet, and I have the honor of introducing the next guest. And again, like Mario, I met him 18 months ago, I think. I can't remember exactly. When we started this, I went on the radio one time with Mario, and somebody called in and they said, "Young lady, are you Caymanian?" And I said, "Yes, actually my mom's family is generational. I go back very far." And he repeatedly, over and over again, every time there's been a meeting, he's gotten up and stood up for me, because my accent is a little American. I might not have the right color skin, but he has said this over and over again, that our group is multi-generational. It's first generation, it's every color, it's every creed. And I'm so proud to stand next to him, and I'm so proud to introduce him. And again, I know that you know his name, Mr. Johan Moxham.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Confession. I started a speech, wrote it down, and then I accidentally deleted it, so bear with me. That's no joke. The secretary had gone home, and I was like, oh my God, why is this happening tonight? Anyway, first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you who have come here. I want to thank everyone at home watching the live stream. I want to thank, more importantly, every single Caymanian that was concerned, committed, and brave enough to sign the petition, because that's what started this. After that, when you look around the crowd, and it's kind of dark here, the best part of this journey, in my mind, has been the fellowship, the teamwork, and don't get me wrong, we have days where we don't agree on what day of the week it is, but there is collective purpose, there is a commitment to each other, there is a commitment to the volunteers, because the best part of this entire experience for me is the diversity of what CPR represents, our group of volunteers, and the people that actually show up, care, give their time, their energy, their resources to help us do this. That is what Cayman is today. And the one thing that I am proud of is this group, this movement, this initiative represents all of us. Every single type of Caymanian there is. Black, brown, white, Spanish, Asian, young, old, skinny. I prefer to call myself husky. But to see that we are committed to the principles of participatory democracy is what drives this thing. If anyone asks who's CPR and why did CPR come about, it's really simple. It started with pockets of people that were ignored by their elected representatives. We're talking basic things like sending emails, asking for a meeting, simple, basic questions. It then grew from a pocket here and a pocket there to a really sort of diverse army of, I'll say it proudly, rascals. We have experienced a level of, and there's no polite way to say this, but when you have a sitting in the LA and no one focuses in on the referendum bill that they're there to debate and to figure out the best way forward, and they're focusing in on the personalities, on CPR, and who's funding us, and why we're doing it, and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen, they have missed the plot, and they don't understand what we are about, because our elected leaders are disconnected from what we represent, what our concerns are, why we exist, why we ask the questions, and why we are committed to holding them accountable today, and more importantly, on December the 19th. CPR would not exist, if, in my mind, if something as simple as the Premier and Cabinet of the Cayman Islands responding to several emails or letters. There would have been no reason. This is before we got to the petition stage. This is just, hi, we have a couple of questions about the project. Can you help us? The fact that the leadership of this country feel emboldened and so arrogant that they don't need to respond to any of you. And it's not about me, and it's not about Mario, and it's not about Michelle. They don't think they have to answer to any of you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, puts us on the path to becoming a banana republic, because we voted them in, they work for us, and they should at least have the courtesy, respect, and professionalism to respond to our basic questions like, when will there be an updated EIA? Apparently that's a sin. Well, there's no need for an EIA. No. When you have a new design in deeper water, when you've basically changed the entire scope of it and you're relying on reports from 2015, ladies and gentlemen, that's a whole new project, okay? The same government that feel that an updated EIA is not important are the same majority-led government that passed the National Conservation Law and who are prepared to gut the National Conservation Law to suit their political agenda. The only thing worse than that sort of duplicitousness is spending public funds to misrepresent the facts and to lie to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, the government have a budget of $500,000 to $1 million CI dollars for this campaign. Do you know what that money could have done for old people, young children, schools, anything else? But they would rather use our funds, tax-paying public funds, to fight the people who are doing one thing, exercising their constitutional, their democratic rights, which are enshrined in the Constitution. That, for me, is unacceptable. It is exactly how we will end up like some of the neighboring countries. When your elected gods don't feel that they are responsible to answer you, but coincidentally, they will show up in 2021 and say to you, hey, I need you. You know, I was there for you. Hey, what you need? I got some marl. I got some Christmas beef. I got something. You need us in 2021, but you can't respond and respect us now. Ladies and gentlemen, that is at the core of this issue. If there was a mutual exchange or exchange of mutual respect, we would not have a CPR. We would not be having a historic event like a people's initiated referendum. But the government in that building left us no choice, and it drove concerned citizens of every color, shape, size, multi-generational, first-generational, brand new Caymanians to say, hold on, I want to have a say in the country that I call home, in the country that my children live in, and I want to understand the basics about this project. Instead of answering your questions, you go to this charade of a public consultation exercise called Government Meetings with the Verdant Isle Group. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no problems with the preferred bidder being there to help give technical support, but as a Caymanian voter, I never voted for Verdant Isle Port Partners at all. So I don't understand how this government can delegate the responsibility of addressing our legitimate concerns, and there are three buckets. There are significant environmental concerns that are real, and for somebody that is a novice or a non-sort of environmentalist, I just want to swim in nice clear water. It's very simple. I want me and my boys to go swimming in basic water, you know, that I can see what's going on. The fact that I know, and I'm really, really, really not good at what they're talking about, that Georgetown Harbor will be milky. There's no way around this. This thing about sedimentation monitoring. Ladies and gentlemen, outside of the professionals here, once you dredge it up, it's milky, so it doesn't matter what you're monitoring at that stage. Okay? The other problem in the environmental sphere is this government have put a gag order on our very own champions of the environment, the Department of Environment, and its leadership, Gina Ebanks-Petrie. The fact that we can sit back and listen to the experts from abroad, but we are not allowed to hear the input, the advice, the concerns, and the recommendations of our own Department of Environment. Ladies and gentlemen, what do they have to hide? Thank God for CCMI. Thank God for the National Trust. Thank God for the Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. Thank God for new friends and visitors like Dr. Dunning, people that understand these issues. The government would have you make a decision blindfolded based on the assurance of, trust me, we know what we're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is too big a decision to get wrong. This is the most complex, most expensive public capital works project in the history of the Cayman Islands, and they want us to go on the basis of trust me. Ladies and gentlemen, the last time we trusted them on major capital works projects, we had a $110 million school called the Clifton Hunter, and children cannot read coming out of that school. No one in this government has a track record of successfully managing any capital works project, but now you want to put at risk the draw of the Cayman Islands. People come here for what we have. The cruise ships want their passengers to come here because of what we have, but we're prepared to sacrifice all of that without them having the courtesy, respect, and decency to give us all of the information. That is unacceptable. It's undemocratic. It is bogus. And we exist because of their actions. There's no other way to put it, and it's important that people understand we're not heroes. We're not superhuman. Mr. Burlington, stand up, please. My friend, you are a hero. I know multiple civil servants who were afraid to come to this meeting tonight, petrified because they have notices posted in their offices and they were told by their managers, don't go to any public meetings. Well, how will you get the information if you don't go to public meetings? But there's a catch to this. Apparently, you should go to government-sponsored propaganda meetings and government lunch and learn sort of functions. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never seen, that's a lie. I remember in the good old days where I could tell the difference between the PPM and the UDP. They are one and the same right now, and the same tricks and madness that they were doing in 2010, 11, 12, this government have taken it up to another level, okay? We deserve better, and it starts with all of us taking one other person to the polls, inviting them to these sort of meetings, getting informed, asking questions, because there's no sin or crime in asking legitimate, respectful questions of anybody. I went to the meeting at the Mayor Miller Hall, and I thought I was in prison. The government have spent and hired 3 public relations agencies, Kelly Holding, Tower, and Fountainhead, and they control the entire show. You have to write your questions, and guess what? There's no guarantee they're going to read your questions because they're vetting your questions. How is that democratic? How is that part of the public education campaign if you can't, if they gave you a 2-minute limit, hey, ask your question, move on, next question. They're afraid to do that. You know why? Their game was exposed on September 26, 2018 at the Family Life Center when we figured out that their definition of transparency, their definition of operating with the best international best practice and standards was a scam, a sham, a fraud. You had the Minister of Tourism sitting next to representatives from Carnival Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean, who now make up the Verdant Isle group. Nobody acknowledged that they were part of the bid team. It took brave citizens asking the questions, Minister, if you believe in transparency so much, why are you sitting next to bidders? Worse than that, you had the National Procurement Office on the other side of the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we as a country are better than that. We have to be better than that, because if not, we're going to end up like all of the other countries in the region that we mock at, and we mock and we say, nice place, but I can tell you why I'm doing this. It isn't to get elected. Trust me. It isn't that. I have a great life, and I love spending time with my family. I don't want to live in the next Jamaica. I don't want to live in the next Bahamas. I don't want to live in the next Bermuda. I don't want to live in the next Trinidad and Tobago. And the path that the Cayman Islands is on, and the way that our elected officials are governing the country and demonstrating a complete lack of respect for us, the collective. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a stone's throw away from getting to that sort of governance model. But here's what's worse. We can't afford any more expensive mistakes, because projects like this will do one thing, will do 2 things. It will destroy the environment and the draw that brings people to the Caribbean. They can't tell you that the 7 Mile Beach will not be impacted. They would prefer to go and get expensive experts from abroad, yet they won't allow DOE to speak on the issues. They won't allow CCMI to speak on the issues. They won't allow Courtney Platt, Kathy Church, and our own people that have been in our country for decades to contribute to a national discussion on a matter of national importance. Ladies and gentlemen, they have it all wrong, and we have to find the courage, the strength to do the right thing and encourage every single person in our family, every single registered voter, every single person we know. We can take back control of the country. We can take back control over this project, and it starts by showing up on Referendum Day, December 19th. If you need a ride, give CPR your phone number. We will come and find you. okay? There will be no excuse good enough for you or your family members not to make it to the polls. We will be organized on election day. We will have a proper sort of election day operation. We will have buses and rides, and we will come and get you. That's what we're about. That's why we have hundreds of volunteers. And let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not the leader of CPR. We are the leaders of CPR, okay? Every single volunteer, people that give their time, you have no idea. People say, listen, I got to go to work, I got to go away, but I'm coming back, and where do you need me? People that I've never met before, who are brand spanking new Caymanian, who are multi-generational Caymanian, love Cayman as much as you and I. That is what CPR has shown. That is what CPR is about, and that is what they fear. They fear that our voices, they fear that new Caymanians and generational Caymanians and white Caymanians and black Caymanians are working together to chart a Cayman for us all. That is what they fear. And on December 19th, we have an opportunity to show them this is just the start. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, imagine this, the energy, the collective will, the passion, the commitment that we have to protect the harbor, which in my mind, that is the biggest issue. They've lied about the economic model. They've lied. They've spent $1 million on a PR campaign that really and truly does nothing adds up. First it was no loans, no borrowings, no bonds, no debt. Ladies and gentlemen, it took the CEO of Royal Caribbean, Michael Bayliss, to come here the end of September 28th, I think it was. He did an interview with the Compass. It took Michael Bailey to tell the country, oh, by the way, the Cayman Islands government will be giving up $2.32 per head out of the passenger tax. When you take $2.32 times 2.5 million passengers, which is the minimum commitment for this sort of project to be viable, and you multiply that by 25 years, that's $145 million. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not free. It never was. But they thought that they could be slick and they could misrepresent the facts. But eventually, everything you do in the dark comes to light. Okay? Two more points, and that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we should all be offended that we can have a government-sponsored meeting where when somebody asks about the track record of Verdant Isle and its partners, Royal Caribbean or Carnival Cruise Lines, given their woeful record when it comes to the breaches of environmental laws and guidelines, and the fact that Carnival Cruise Line is subject to a $60 million fine in the US via the courts in Florida. That question was posed at their own meeting, and it was scoffed at, and they refused to answer, and the Premier himself didn't see any merit in that. If Carnival Cruise Lines can do that in America, where they have real laws, real structure, they won't even allow DOE to have any of the information. What hope in hell does the Cayman Islands have if they are prepared to play fast and loose and allow people with proven track records of environmental damage and breaches of relevant laws? How does that even become something that gets done? And the reason why I ask that is, if you go to open up a bank account, there's something called due diligence. Did the government not do any due diligence on its partners that they're committing us to mortgaging our future with? Because they're not doing it for Caymanians, they're doing it for them. The myth that gets told is, we're doing this for jobs and opportunities for Caymanian people. I don't know who you are, but I love you. Ladies and gentlemen, we went to the meeting a year ago. There was 999 jobs that were going to be provided. Magically, I wish I could lose weight like how they're losing jobs, to be honest with you. It went from 999 jobs to 700 jobs to 200, 250 jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, these jobs are never going to be given to us. But here's what's worse. The government, again, have misrepresented the merits of this project because the Cayman Islands issue 30,000 work permits, okay? Jobs are there. the myth and the statistics of, well, if we do this, it will get you more jobs. Our children should not, and hear me out, there is nothing wrong with being a taxi driver, water sports operator, tour bus operator. Those are noble, honest jobs, and I want every single one of them to be successful. But if the master plan for our country is for me and my children and the next generation to become taxi drivers, they don't think very much of us, because Caymanians are now more educated than ever before. And if the government's sole sort of like plan is, well, you can become a taxi driver and run your own business, ladies and gentlemen, first things first, where are we going to put 2.5 million people when your carrying capacity in the Cayman Islands is 2.1 million? They're breaching, and this is to be found in the tourism management report that's produced, or sorry, plan that's produced for 2009 to 2013. That's in their own reports. So what I don't get is, if the minimum number is 2.5 million, and I know for a fact that they're trying to get to 3.5 million, where are we going to put these people? How are we going to spread them out? What beaches are they going to use? Forgive me for being a little bit rude here. If there's anybody in here who needs to use the bathroom, I challenge you to go find it. I challenge you, go, go, go. There are no public restrooms, there's no infrastructure, there's nothing for us. So how are we going to accommodate them? And that's the issue that I have. I have no problems with cruise tourism, stayover tourism. We need the balance of stayover tourism and cruise tourism. But at the end of the day, our quality of life should not be negative impacted because of a handful of people who put their self-interest, their greed, and their bottom line before that of the majority. And the fact that our government is prepared to make decisions that benefit a select few instead of the many lets me know the game is up, and we have a chance to make things right December 19th by really simple, vote no. Thank you very much. I want to ask every CPR volunteer to step to the stage so that you guys can see who the magical team is that makes this entire thing go. We are nothing without your support. We thank you so much for being here. We ask you to keep coming, spread the gospel of truth, and highlight the fact that the government have not given you an updated EIA. They have not shared the financial models or sort of updated final business plan with you. So how can they encourage you to make a decision when they haven't given you all of the information? It's almost like I'm going to build a house. I've never seen what's inside of it, but I can trust the contractor because I think he's nice. Nice guys get it wrong too, everybody. So again, I just want to take the opportunity to have you glimpse some of the true rascals and warriors and people that are committed to making this happen. Step to the front, please. Step to the front, step to the front, step to the stage, I don't care. This is Courtney Platt. He's an environmental expert, okay? Step on through, step on through. I'm going to borrow something from a friend. There's a guy by the name of Kurt Christian. He's the most persistent guy on social media in the world. If you say, have a nice day, his response is vote no. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all be Kurt Christians on December the 19th. Let's vote no. CPR, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be having more meetings. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Good night.